Ladies and gentlemen, Roster Watch Nation, welcome back to the epic Roster Watch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, here, of course, with the Trashman for our one podcast of the week this week. Generally, we'll have you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This week, I'll be traveling at the end of the week, so we wanted to get this one in as we are now only 14 days out from heading out to Indy to check out these new prospects, go to the NFL Combine, and address the NFL coaches and GMs. Today, we're going to talk about some fantasy questions that we have for the AFC South and the AFC East that we're going to try and get answered while we're out there at the Combine. Also, we'll be breaking down the Stanford wide receiver Michael Wilson. Trashman, what the hell's going on, brother?
I guess, basking in the glow of a Eagles Super Bowl loss.
Yeah, well, that was an interesting.
I guess you can't tell by the green I'm wearing, but that's totally coincidental.
Interesting game for sure. It's so weird, man. The weather we're having down here in Central Texas. It's like I'm still wearing like the stuff that I wore like this morning when you had to get out because it was cold.
Yeah.
And now it's like you're wearing the afternoon clothes, where it's like a tank top. It's crazy. I think we're about to get another cold spell again, but I think that spring is pretty much sprung around here, and we always know that's the time whenever we're going to be getting out to the Combine. We were talking before the show about how I'm tilted. I'm gonna have to get up there on Tuesday so 2 weeks from today. I'll be heading up there, and it made it real hard for our travel and for I guess your stuff at home and all the rest of it. That basically what the Combine has done is they've given us coaches and GMs on Tuesday and Wednesday, mainly on Tuesday. It's like Tuesday's the big day where it starts at 8 in the morning and you don't get lunch and it goes through 4 p.m., right? And then Wednesday's the light day where they start them at like noon and they go through 3 p.m. So the big day is Tuesday for availabilities with these coaches and these GMs. And it used to be those were also the days that we get the offensive line and then we get the running backs. And then the next day, during this little bit slower GM and head coach day, we would get the wide receivers and the quarterbacks and the tight ends, right? And some tight ends would still trickle in after we had no more of these availabilities. And after that, we could just rock. We could get out of there, right? Because after the wide receiver quarterback on-field stuff was done, it's like, we love analyzing these defensive players coming in, we're NFL fans, of course, but our audience isn't necessarily dying to hear about these defensive linemen and linebackers and corners and stuff. And so we could get out, kind of before the weekend. Now, what they've done is they've moved the running back, all the skill guys to the weekend. So it's like you got to get out there on Tuesday, and Indy's making you stay all the way through. So
you're going to enjoy the great city of Indianapolis for a couple more days.
Well, and here's the thing. I think this
plethora of things to do.
This is the last year there, right? Because they signed the 2-year deal after they.
I thought there's two more.
They were going to move it.
I thought there's one more year after this.
Is this the first year of the 2-year deal? I always get him. So last year was just the last year of officially Indy. Then Indy signed the 2-year extension. Okay, so hopefully next year they'll move it back. I kind of think this is a ploy by the city of Indy to keep everybody there because everybody knows the two main draws of the Combine are, of course, to get the coaching availabilities and to also see the see the quarterbacks and stuff. People care about that the most as far as the audience, and this is a ploy, I do believe, to keep everybody there stuck with the captive audience.
Or maybe more people can just get there on the weekend. I don't know.
Well, maybe. That's just, to me, it's cockamamie business. But look, listen, I'm not going to complain about my, having a job, having to go talk about football with people. But it's just, man, it's made our it's kind of messed with the travel and everything. Anyway, regardless, we're excited about it. Let's go through the Trashman. You said you want to start with the AFC East. Do you want to start with the Bills?
Yeah.
All right. So Buffalo Bills, they don't have a good cap situation right now, but there are some guys that they're scheduled to lose in free agency. It looks like Jamison Crowder is set to be free.
Jake Kumerow
set to be free. Devin Singletary set to be free. That's a real big one. I thought that there was one. Was there not one other that I thought was semi kind of big? Oh,
not unless you think Tyrone Jones.
Not necessarily.
Or Tommy Sweeney.
Not necessarily, no, not set to be free, but I did. There has been some talk, reading on the Athletic, that Nyheim Hines could be a roster cut and a cap casualty. They can save like $1.6 million by getting rid of those guys. And so whenever I think about that, and I think about the chance of having no Nyheim Hines, the chance of possibly having no Devin Singletary, one thing I want to ask is, what does the running back room look like moving forward if that's the case? And what have you seen out of James Cook this year to maybe have you think that he's a dude who can maybe carry a little bit more of the load than we were used to seeing this last season? Did you see anything out of him that you
Well,
think
I feel like Cook and Singletary are pretty redundant. I mean, from the state of both of their plays, I mean, they seem like very similar kind of players to me.
Well, so okay. Do you think Singletary is gonna? Do you think Singletary is going to be one of these guys that goes somewhere and makes an impact, or is he going to be one of these guys that some of these players like Khalil Herbert or somebody's going to have to dodge, right? If David Montgomery leaves and the Bears sign Devin Singletary or something like that, that could end up hurting somebody else, right? But I'm not sure.
It could end up hurting someone else. I don't see Singletary getting like a starting job somewhere else.
If you look at right now, James Cook has an ADP in the early underdog drafts of like 93.1. I feel like we could see that kind of, 8th round. I feel like we could kind of see that move up from the 8th round in these early best ball drafts if we do find out that both Nyheim Hines is going to be a cap casualty and Devin Singletary is gone. Any thoughts about what losing Jamison Crowder might mean for any of these other guys? Do we really even care about these?
I mean maybe
is that just a Khalil Shakir angle?
Potentially.
I think so too.
Somebody that we were kind of split on, at the Senior Bowl last year. I mean,
we were split on him because we really liked his film coming in, but he didn't have a good week and he dropped too many balls.
Yeah.
So, and you know what?
Good athleticism.
Yeah, but he didn't look good this year, and he didn't get on the field as often as you would generally hope for a rookie that they talked up that much.
Well, and he was splitting time and out of that slot position was like a revolving door. I feel like for the Bills.
I should have looked this up. Is Isaiah McKenzie still on that? Because he signed a new contract. Was that a 2? I want to look it up just real quick. Isaiah McKenzie.
He's definitely not a free agent.
So that was a 2-year deal he signed. So I mean, they could get out. They could get out of his. He's signed for a 1-year.
I don't think
$2.5 million deal.
I don't think Shakir was necessarily better than McKenzie.
Yeah, but only 300 dead, and McKenzie's gonna be 28 years old.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that the main takeaway from this is the James Cook stuff. I think his ADP could really rise for a while here, but then what's going to happen is he's going to get slammed with some kind of good running back getting drafted to the Buffalo Bills, right? I mean, I think that's probably going to happen. Zach Moss is gone. Singletary looks like he's set to be gone. This cap situation is so bad. Even if Singletary only wants 3.5-4 million per year, they're just going to say, "Look, we can't do it. We're 3.1 over the cap as it is." Yeah. I mean. So I think that those are the main things that will kind of
maybe
around.
That's why they took Cook in the first place. The writing was on the wall. They saw that, they would
right. I mean, they tried to go out and get J.D. McKissick. They couldn't get him. He ended up going back to Washington. They tried to get Nyheim Hines during the season. Like, it's clear that they want that kind of pass catching running back. I'm just wondering if James Cook could be a little bit more than just the pass catcher, right? I'm worried with what they're going to do is they're going to bring in some kind of Zach Charbonnet or somebody like that to play in the cold weather and be the hammer, and then have James Cook be the complimentary guy, the same way that James Cook kind of was back in college.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the New York Jets. The New York Jets, as far as cap space, it looks like they have 16-17 million in cap space this year. So they're kind of right there in the big middle of things, which is good, which is good for them because they're going to need to figure something out at quarterback, right? Joe Flacco is set to be free. As As far as the Mike White is set to be free, I'd be interested to hear kind of what they think about Mike White, and if you're going to bring him back. We know that the reporting from Jay Glazer's been that they'll bring back Zach Wilson just to see if he can grow up and quit being such a titty baby, and maybe re-earn some of the respect.
Who else is gonna take him?
I don't know.
James Robinson's free agent.
He's a restricted free agent, but surely they're not going to exercise anything on him. And so Ty Johnson's set to be free. I think one of the main things.
I was saying, I don't think they drafted quarterback, especially when they have Wilson there, and it's not a sure thing drafting a quarterback.
Well, all the talk is Aaron Rodgers, and I was asked this morning by somebody what happens to Garrett Wilson's ADP if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets, and I was like, how much higher can it go? Trashman, I know you haven't started doing best ball drafts yet. I've only started trying to put together the skeleton of the best ball cheat sheet that we're going to have out right after the combine. But do you know where Garrett Wilson's going in early best ball drafts?
I mean, pretty high after that Rookie of the Year win, I imagine.
But how high?
I think probably maybe the third round.
He's going to the 2-3 turn. 23.5 is his ADP right now in the big underdog contest. And if you just look at this, I'm just like, how much more could you even move him up? It's like this Aaron Rodgers stuff is already baked in. You would have to move Garrett Wilson ahead of Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown. I don't see that happening. I feel like he's basically at his ADP.
Even if Rodgers goes there?
If Rodgers goes there, that's another question.
If Rodgers goes there, I'm probably putting him ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm
putting him ahead of Waddle.
I think he'll be right there.
Okay. Well, then maybe what that's telling me is I need to remember to be sneaky high on Elijah Moore, who got swindled last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is all contingent on the Jets getting a good quarterback.
Yes, but Trashman, I know what I'm saying is Garrett Wilson is already being drafted in a spot where I feel like it's already baked in. How much higher can he go than 23.5, the 211 for Garrett Wilson and redraft best ball? That to me feels high for somebody who we're just sort of, just speculating on a better quarterback.
I mean, he won the offensive rookie of the year. It's not really
but he was also wide receiver 31 in PPR. We're drafting him as wide receiver 11. That's a speculative move. It just is. Breece Hall. I feel
like even if a Derek Carr went to the Jets, I feel like Wilson still could put up pretty good numbers.
Don't you think Derek Carr is going to New Orleans?
I don't think that's a given.
Okay, we'll see. Maybe during the show he might have signed. I don't know. But to me, it feels like he doesn't go back to Las Vegas and tell them, look, I don't want you to trade me. I don't care about my contract being guaranteed. I want you to let me go, unless he left New Orleans saying, listen, I don't want you guys to have to give up a draft pick, that's going to help me win to be able to get me, right? So let's lock this deal in. I'm telling them I'm going to use my no trade clause, and they're going to have to drop me. And when they do, we have this deal agreed to in principle, and we're going to make sure that we get a good player that's going to help this football team win games with that pick or those picks that you would have had to have used to make that trade happen.
I mean, it's well within the realm of possibilities. I just think he's probably behind Rodgers. He might be the second highest coveted quarterback out there. I mean, somebody might throw him hella cash. I mean, unless you consider Jimmy Garoppolo a better quarterback.
It feels to me like the Derek Carr same thing's probably going to happen, and we'll see if I'm wrong, but I think that's probably going to happen. All right, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins. These guys, how are these? Like all these teams are like over the cap, so it looks like they're like 7-8 million over the cap. Set to be free. Bridgewater set to be free. a bunch of these like running backs are all set to be free, like Salvon Ahmed, Myles Gaskin, Raheem Mostert. I mean, that's Jeff Wilson. That's the thing. We can ask them, any of those
Mike
guys
Gesicki.
show you enough to come back. But that's the biggest one, right? Mike Gesicki, because they're not going to want him back. I don't know what we would ask. Certainly, what we would ask the Miami Dolphins about them, but just from a dynasty standpoint, like you and I have talked about, they don't use him in the way that they like. He's not George Kittle, right? He's not going to go out there and put some dude's dick in the dirt. Being so happy to get the grass all over his face mask by putting guys in the ground like George Kittle does. You need to line this guy up out wide. Uses just elite athleticism. He could be a dude that if he lands in the right spot, he could be like kind of like Evan Ingram was this year for the Jaguars. Kind of had this resurgence when you just use him in the right kind of way. So Mike Gesicki is certainly somebody of interest for me there. And then I guess Tua Tagovailoa came out of the concussion protocol while we were in Mobile. So that was I'd like to ask you about that. Like how was he in the protocol for that long? I mean, is he going to be okay?
They forgot he was in there.
Yeah, what are the plans with him? Okay, the New England Patriots. I think that the biggest one here that they're two big ones, right? Jacoby Myers and Damian Harris both set to be free, right? We'll obviously ask about Damian Harris. Right? We're not even going to get asked about these guys, right? They're not going to give us any.
They're not going to say anything.
Well, the Patriots aren't going to give any availability. Right? They're not going to give any availability. So,
the teams generally don't talk about free agents.
Right, but they can talk about players on their own team. I think that the conversation it boils down from Damian Harris to what did you think about Ramondre Stevenson? What were your in-season evaluations over the first year of Pierre Strong, of Kevin Harris? Are those guys you think can contribute? Do you need a guy like a Damian Harris to keep Ramondre healthy for a whole year? Can he really carry the load? We haven't seen it yet. Ramondre Stevenson going just so super high in Dynasty. We're probably 20 spots behind on Dynasty because some of these worries that we have about him. But Trashman, it's like, as I start looking at best ball stuff, where do you think Ramondre's ADP is in season-long best ball on Underdog, which is only half-point PPR? It's 35.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's at the 3-4 turn. So it's above Tony Pollard. It's above Joe Mixon and Najee Harris and DeAndre Swift and Dalvin and Javonte. It's too high.
That's kind of crazy to me.
It's too high. So we need to find out, once and for all, is this going to be a situation that's going to that's going to be as good for fantasy owners as people are projecting it to be? Because it feels like the industry has such a love affair with Ramondre Stevenson. They really do.
Patriots in general.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Bill O'Brien being there is certainly going to help. I can't believe I'm saying that. That's how bad it was last year. Like we're saying, thank God Bill O'Brien's coming to save the day. It's so fucked up, right? Speaking of Bill O'Brien, why don't we move to the AFC South and just start with talking about the Texans? This is a total. They're going to need to continue to rebuild, but there's some of these guys, who, even despite the fact that like Brandon Cooks they're on the hook for Brandon Cooks this year for just an astronomical sum. I was just looking it up earlier. I couldn't believe it. They can get out of it after this year, but they backloaded everything from last season onto this season with Cooks. So I was thinking maybe we might be able to get a situation where he could be a cap casualty. That can't be the case, right? So the stuff I was most interested in was like John Mechie. How does he look? Well, how is he doing? How do his workouts look? Is he a guy who's going to be ready, like full steam ahead for OTAs? And then I also just want to say, what was your thought about Dameon Pierce last season? And it's going to be D'Amico Ryans that we get, so he's not going to have that much to say about it. But I would have to imagine that Caserio is going to want to brag on his picks from last year. And we'll hear what he thinks about Dameon Pierce being a sustainable piece here moving forward as they go through this rebuild. They do have a ton of cap space. They're probably going to get a new quarterback. Pass catching running backs, as you know, can be young quarterbacks' best friends. Dameon Pierce can catch. So I think that he's a guy who could, pick up some steam as this offense becomes a little bit more viable. And also Rex Burkhead, Royce Freeman, all these guys set to be free. So I think it makes a lot of sense to say, like, well, how much is going to be on Dameon Pierce's plate?
Well, yeah, and what we want to see out of Pierce this season is more consistency. And I think, getting a better quarterback in position, getting someone like Mechie on the field, I think those things, definitely enable him to have, put all the pieces together in his second year on a consistent basis.
For the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's crazy, man. They have a terrible cap situation right now. They're over. How are they over? They're over the cap by $18.1 million, and they're not even paying Trevor Lawrence. That's wild to me. The guys that are set to be free, the aforementioned Evan Ingram set to be free, Dan Arnold set to be free. Evan Ingram is going to be an interesting one because if you look at Spot Track, they've calculated him as being like an $8 million per year kind of tight end. I'm not sure they're going to be able to make that happen as they're trying to clear up some of this salary cap space. So that'll be an interesting one to monitor. I would think definitely as dynasty owners and people who have him in those kinds of setups, I would want Evan Ingram to stay there. I'm not sure the situation is going to get any better for him elsewhere with the volume he was able to receive this last season. It should, JaMychal Hasty is set to be free, which feels like it's good for Travis Etienne, or is it not? Because he's one of Matt Kelly's famous like meat shields, right? He's just good enough to where they can think they have a good backup, not good enough to really hurt Travis Etienne, but maybe they bring in somebody who's actually good that could hurt Etienne.
I think they'll feel like they'll probably need to, just based on Etienne's track record with injury.
Marvin Jones has got to be gone, right?
I mean, I feel like
they can't bring him back whenever they're paying Zay Jones and they're paying Christian Kirk such mad money.
Yeah, I feel like the wide receiver position is one where they feel like they can probably let one or two guys slide. And Marvin Jones, he was actually pretty decent in spots last year. But
how old is Starvin Marvin? How old is Marvin Jones? Hold on. Let's see.
I think he's probably 29.
Let's see. I'm having trouble finding him. Let's see. Marvin Jones. Let's go to Wikipedia here.
He's 32.
Why is he not in the database?
He's 32 years old.
Am I being stupid here? He's 32?
He's 32.
Okay. I must be typing in. Maybe it could be under Marvin Jones Jr. or something. Anyway, okay. So Marvin Jones, 32. He's not coming back. He'll get a. What do you think? He'll get a couple more like little 1-year contracts here and there.
I think so.
Yeah, I think probably so. He'll get he might get another 1-year deal. Kind of see how he looks and maybe another one.
They could use him in Dallas.
Oh God. Okay. Indianapolis Colts. So this is just I guess Shane Steichen, new head coach. They have about $30 million in cap space. So that looks good compared to some of these other guys. Paris Campbell set to be free. Looks like Deion Jackson set to be free, but he's an exclusive rights free agent. Other than that, not too much fantasy stuff here to really think about. One thing that I
guess the question is, are they drafting a quarterback or back or bringing one in?
Well, it's funny. They said that they're confident that they're going to find one. So I mean, they're not giving us too many answers there with that, but certainly it'll be interesting to hear what.
Because Steichen's been able to develop 2 young quarterbacks in a pretty short amount of time. And Herbert and Hurts.
Oh, right. Right, because Herbert and Hurts. Yeah, you're right. So, man, God, that gets you jobs these days, right? If you can just show you can develop, especially like Michael Lombardi always talks about on the GM Shuffle podcast, where he's like, especially with a guy like Chris Ballard, it's like he's got to be banging his head against the wall whenever Jim Irsay keeps talking about bringing in Jeff Saturday and just all again, because it's like Ballard understands that he's drafted good players, right? What the Colts haven't been doing is developing players.
Yeah,
They have good players. I think that you would be the first to argue that with as heavy as you were into Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, all that stuff. They have some good players. They have some good pieces. The offensive line on paper should be awesome. A lot of these guys haven't received the kind of development that they need. And so I think that with Steichen, that certainly makes sense.
Yeah.
Paris Campbell is also interesting to me. Like, how important is it that you bring him back? I think he could be a good free agent ad for some other team somewhere.
A great ad somewhere. I mean, it's just they haven't really been able to utilize him consistently.
They should send him to the Bills, and he could swindle Khalil Shakir.
Oh wow, yeah.
All right. What about the Titans here? We have the Titans who are over the cap. They have a terrible cap situation. This is kind of a bad situation overall because they're not the most,
And they seem intent on bringing a veteran quarterback in too.
Well, they're gonna have to get rid of Ryan Tannehill. That saves them about $19 million. That would get them down. If they got rid of Tannehill, that gets them down to basically right under the cap. And there's some other guys that they can let walk. Austin Hooper is set to be free. I see that Dontrell Hilliard set to be free. Who else here as far as fantasy relevant got? Tight ends like Jeff Swain. It looks like Nick Westbrook-Akine is set to be free. Austin Hooper is going to be too expensive to keep, so I doubt that they keep him. Do you think that they are going to try and get rid of Robert Woods to save $12 million?
I mean, they don't have much going outside of it. I mean, outside of
that's what we need to figure out.
I mean, Treylon Burks and Woods. I mean, unless
we needed to find out is 2023 the year of Treylon Burks, right? Is this his big year? Is he going to come along like the Garrett Wilsons, like the Chris Olaves, like the Jahan Dotsons started to last year, like even Drake London towards the end of the year last year started to?
You could argue that a lot of that's going to be contingent on who's under center for him.
Let's just please hope it's not Malik Willis or Josh Dobbs. They should have drafted Sam Howell the same way we should have had him as our Senior Bowl all Senior Bowl quarterback.
Yeah,
that Malik Willis swindle's one I'll never forget.
I liked Howell all week too.
Let's talk about Michael Wilson. I haven't read your write-up yet. I've done some of my own work on him. My general thoughts are this. I think he might have been a more highly coveted prospect if he wouldn't have gotten hurt in his his junior season where he only played the 4 games?
2 seasons.
Yeah, well, right. I was going to mention, so in the junior season, he only played 4. I think didn't he start every game as a sophomore?
Yeah.
And then did he get hurt this last year too?
Yeah.
So it was
2020 and 2022. I think he got hurt.
Let me just pull up his.
No, I think so. I think it was his junior season he finished.
Let me just pull it up. I'm getting a little bit confused here on the Michael Wilson timeline.
I'm pretty sure he didn't finish the 2020 season. He didn't finish the 2022 season, if I'm thinking correctly.
No, well, here it is. He only played 4 games in 2020. He only played 4 games in 2021. Was 2020 the COVID shortened season for him?
Yeah.
Okay, so only 4 games in 2021, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, only 7 games in 2022. So I mean, he's battled some injuries, but he was an all Senior Bowler for us, one of the top 3 guys during the week of the Senior Bowl practices. If you look at PFF's stuff on him, good yards per route run. I believe in the top 60 or so among qualifiers. Lined up about only 26% out of the slot. Most of his time was spent out wide. That's generally kind of where I like him. I didn't think his hands were an issue at all at the Senior Bowl. I'm not sure if you did. I actually kind of liked his hands.
No, I thought he had good hands.
But he did have a 12% drop rate in 2022, which is, I don't know. Like if that's, we generally say anything creeping up past 8 or 9, where you can start kind of looking into it. It isn't a Dontavion Wicks where it's, what was that in his 2022 season, like 19 or something like that. Not quite like that, but certainly, just something to keep an eye on and something to sort of remember whenever we're kind of looking at him.
Some of that too might have been based around his quarterback and his. Because he's one of these guys who kind of is a quarterback's best friend, so he will kind of go for those passes that maybe he shouldn't in some of these cases. For me, it's really his ability to cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time when he makes his cuts and his release. It's just like he's so quick in tight spaces, and he's a big guy, so like he makes that move out. And he just, and it creates separation.
Yeah, like right there, the way he gets in, like the way that he can, the way that he gets into his routes on some of these ones that cut in, some of these digs that come back, the way he can sink his hips, get in and out. Oh,
look,
good, like really good stem, really good.
He can make one move and he's 5 yards, away from his defender.
Yeah, he's a big body dude. Even though people generally think of Elijah Higgins as the big body guy to come out of Stanford, like Wilson's got
he's a big body dude that moves like a small body dude.
Oh yeah, look at that one. Look at like just a little kind of in cutting kind of Texas route there. Look, I think that Michael Wilson is good, right? I think he's good. He's an all Senior Bowl guy. As far as where we have him, from just a production standpoint, it's not, the production wasn't really good for him. It's like 9% of the team's receptions last year, 14% of the team's receiving yards, 27% of the team's receiving touchdowns, even though it was only 4. But it was a season that was, he had, I don't know. He has trouble finishing seasons, man. I don't know if Michael Wilson's just injury prone or what the deal is with him, but I think he's good when he's out there on the field. There are things about his game I like. Like you said, I like his short area quickness. I like his burst. I like the way he gets into his cuts, out of his cuts. I like his stems at the line of scrimmage.
I think he's one of these guys because he's a bigger prototypical quarterback. Receiver who looks and can move like a smaller guy. I think sometimes, when you have a body like that, moving like that, it can lead to some untimely injuries. And I think that's maybe kind of what we've seen with him so far. But, it can be a blessing or a curse. I feel like if he can stay healthy, I think he could be really good in the NFL.
6'2", right at 6'2". He's 6'1"
like
and
5'8",
216 pounds. He's got 9 and 7/8 inch hands, so 10-inch hands. I mean, these are all things we like. Just as importantly, he did break out, and as Trashman mentioned, in his sophomore season. So he's got an age 19 breakout age. That's important, right? It goes to show that at a point in time, Michael Wilson came in and went gangbusters as the new kid on the block, right? In Pac-12 football. So, my question to you is, like, you're sitting there, you're an NFL GM, and you're on the clock, and you need a wide receiver. Michael Wilson, Rashee Rice, and Xavier Hutchinson are all just sitting right there. Which one are you picking?
I think I'm picking. I think I might pick Rice there.
So it's close between Rice. It's close between Rashee Rice and Michael Wilson for you.
I feel like if Wilson didn't have the injury history he has, then I would pick Wilson.
Is Xavier Hutchinson even in the same bucket?
Not to me.